First order of business, I'd like to apologize for being late out of executive session. Your time is important. I know that when I sit in the doctor's office and wait forever, I always feel that they think my time is not important to me. So we do apologize for coming out late. We had a lot of things to talk about. Would you please stand for the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, this meeting has been duly advertised in the Esquire Press, issue of May 3rd, 2012. All municipal clerks of the townships and boroughs within the regional high school district have been duly notified, and the requirements of posting notices have been met. Okay, let's see, we have minutes approval. Oh, I skipped over the approval of organization meeting actions. Motion to adopt the following resolutions. Resolve to approve district operation items as listed on attachment 1. To approve district appointments as listed on attachment 2. And resolve to approve the professional appointments as listed on attachment 3. Second. Okay. Discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Asatola? Yes. Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Canario?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawson? Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazick?
Yes, but voting present but not voting. Present but not voting for the auditor and insurance agent.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Boyce, minutes approval. Motion to approve the minutes of the following meeting, April 23rd meeting.
Mr. Asatola?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Canario?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazick?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes. Okay, communications are on file in the board secretary's office. Report, superintendent's report.
Okay, before I get started on my report, we have a presentation this evening from the special education supervisors. If you take a look around some of the artwork here that was done for some of our programs, I'm sure they'll speak to. But I do just want to say, oftentimes in our district we have 6 different high schools, and they're spread geographically, different certainly demographically. I am pleased to say that the special education supervisors are such a tight-knit group. I see them in the board office working together, collaborating. They check their egos at the door, and they really share ideas. I think it exemplifies what we should be about as administrators. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Hazel, who will kick off that presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson, and thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening to represent the Special Education Department. My name is Dr. Hazel, Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. Our presentation this evening will provide a glimpse of the important and challenging work of the special education departments across the district. The work of the department personifies the collective contributions of many individuals that support each student's growth and development through their high school years, as well as their planning for transition after high school. We are challenged and inspired by our work each and every day, and our department continuously reinvents itself to develop cutting-edge programs and support services to allow each student to meet his or her potential. You will see this evidenced in tonight's presentation. A student's individualized education plan is not developed in isolation. It is a collaborative effort between the school, student, and parent through ongoing and frequent communications and feedback. We appreciate and recognize the outstanding work of our parents and the work of our Special Education Advisory Council, our SEAC, which is led by our president, Mrs. Simo, and our vice president, Mrs. Manos. This school year, the SEAC provided 4 outstanding workshops that were extremely well attended by our students and parents. I'd like to take a moment to thank and recognize the administrators, the support staff, the teachers, child study team members, related service providers that support our department's goals and vision, and many of them are here tonight to support our department, and I thank you. Lastly, a special thank you to our superintendent of schools, Mr. Sampson, as he frequents many of our meetings as we work here into the wee hours of the night. And to the Board of Education members for their unyielding support of our students and our programs. I now introduce to you a fine, dynamic group of educators and professionals that I am proud to work side by side with. I introduce to the podium my administrative supervisor, who will lead the presentation, Ms. Renee Davis. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Board of Education, Mr. Sampson, the district staff, parents, community members, and students in the audience. As Dr. Hayden said, my name is Renee Davis, and on behalf of the department, I just would like to thank you for allowing us this opportunity to come before you to discuss special education programs as well as services available within the district. The special education department is comprised of specially trained staff. And I'd just like to introduce our supervisors, starting with Stephanie Capus from Marlborough. From Coltsneck. And Brez Giles from Freehold. And Canto from Howell. And Henry from Freehold Township. And this department could not be successful without the head of our department, Dr. Hazel, the assistant superintendent. We all are charged, and the teachers, and as well as the paras. We are all charged with working with 1,800 classified students within the district borders. We continuously articulate with sending districts, parents, the community, agencies in the state in support of the current and post-secondary needs of students. This next slide discusses least restrictive environment, also known as LRE. LRE is a Department of Education initiative as well as each student's right. Our goal, aligned with federal and local regulations, is to expose all students that are classified to the maximum extent appropriate to general education, environment, and programming. Simply because a student is classified as having a cognitive, emotional, or maybe learning difference, such as autism, does not automatically mean a self-contained program, such as maybe an out-of-district program, is warranted or appropriate. Our district offers students the full continuum of special education programming as displayed on this slide. The most restrictive environment is home instruction. This is why it's a temporary placement until we are able to find appropriate day program for a student. Next on the hierarchy is out-of-district placement. The only time we seek to find an out-of-district placement for a student is when a specialized program is needed that's not available within the district. Next, we have special classes, or what's also known as self-contained classes. The students that are projected for these classes need a modified curriculum as well as instruction for academic success. Next on the hierarchy is a resource center class. These classes follow the general education curriculum. The only difference is that it's in a smaller class size, and slower pacing. The least restrictive environment is general education. This could be in-class resource or a totally mainstream class. Most of our students, regardless of their classification, are exposed to general education classes, even if it's just one class at a time, and this affords them the opportunity to have classes and programs with their typically developing peers. Next. Thank you. This is just a diagram of all of the special education programs that are available within the district. Some programs like in-class resource, ICR, and resource center are available in all of our schools because all of our students pretty much access those classes. Classes such as the Autism Program, RLA, LLD, Cognitively Impaired, those are more specialized programs that are available in select schools. And the special education supervisors will elaborate more on these programs. Next. In the beginning, I briefly mentioned our case managers. I just want to let you know that each building, all 6 high schools, is equipped with a full child study team, which consists of a school psychologist, a school social worker, and a learning disabilities teacher consultant, LDTC. We also have speech and occupational therapists that are available throughout the district. Traditionally, case management is about writing IEPs and working with various parties such as parents and the community to help implement those IEPs and support students. Since we serve such a broad spectrum of students, the role of the case manager is stretched beyond simply case management. For example, throughout the year, case managers articulate very closely with the sending districts in support of a smooth transition for students and their parents as they enter high school. 95% of the case managers have 10 or more years of experience in special education, and I believe this offers an invaluable support for teachers, parents, and students. In the last 10 years, the special education law, IDEA, has changed. Federal and state changes to IDEA have required case managers to change their approach to writing and implementing IEPs in support of students as for their current program as well as post-secondary. In response to this year, the district has embarked on a new IEP program called Iep Direct. Not only does this new program offer case managers and teachers a more efficient way of communicating and planning for the needs of students, it also helps with articulation as 5 out of the 6 sending districts have adopted the same program, Iep Direct. It's a system, for example, that allows for more electronic green communication between districts and beyond. The IEP drives the needs of the student. It highlights the student's strengths, some weaknesses, their interests, and their preferences. Our ability to map out the student's needs and craft a program that optimizes the success of students has enhanced since adopting this new IEP program. Through hands-on, ongoing collaboration with central office administration, building administrators, the community, and parents, the Fremont Regional High School District will continue to experience success with meeting the needs and expectations of students and their families as they transition to post-secondary endeavors. Now I'd like to introduce Stephanie Capus, who will come and talk a little bit about the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to I need these glasses. A year ago I didn't. It's a year ago. But I'd like to begin by speaking to the Common Core Standards in special education. The Common Core Standards, which replace the New Jersey Curriculum Content Standards, are to be applied nationally. And at this point, almost all states and territories of the United States have adopted the Common Core Standards. The Common Core Standards are designed to provide our students the skills necessary to compete in our increasingly global society. The Common Core Standards have been developed in a collaborative effort among a variety of stakeholders to include folks from the Council for Exceptional Children. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Council, it is the largest international professional organization dedicated to improving the educational success of special needs individuals and advocates for appropriate governmental policies. What we as special educators have found in the unveiling of the Common Core Standards is a most special education-friendly philosophy, and that there is consideration and an expectation that the standards will be appropriate for all students. The standards are skill-based and provide a consistent, clear understanding of what the students are expected to learn. They are designed to be relevant to the real world, reflecting the knowledge and skills that our young people will need for success in college and career in the 21st century. The spirit of the Common Core Standards therefore serves to promote a culture of higher expectation and achievement for all. In this regard, we are excited about the spirit and pragmatics of the new standards, and our view is highly optimistic. However, we remain fully aware of the challenges of implementing more rigorous standards for the benefit of our students receiving special education services. Students will be taught, for example, to read a diverse array of classic and contemporary literature, as well as practical informational texts, and will be expected to gain insights, explore possibilities, and broaden perspective in the development of higher level thinking. With regard to skills of mathematics, students will be engaged in applying mathematical ways of thinking to real-world issues. In order to meet the challenge, some of the supports and services that will be provided include instructional strategies based upon the principles of universal design for learning, embracing not simply the mastery of knowledge, but the mastery of learning. These strategies will support the range of student abilities, providing opportunity for students to learn and express what they have learned in a variety of ways. Strategies will include the use of assistive technology, scaffolding instruction wherein support is provided and weaned as students move toward independence, implementation of differentiated instructional strategies to include tiered activities whereby students work with the same important understandings and skills, but proceed with different levels of support or complexity. Accommodations for students and teacher collaboration regarding effective strategies will be provided. Intervention strategies will be implemented as a result of assessment dictate. There will be continued emphasis on learning disabilities of mind, and striving for accuracy, persisting on task, reaching automaticity, and self-monitoring become the norm. Related services and other supports will be designated to meet the unique needs of students with disabilities. The individual educational plan, the IEP, developed for each special student will contain those goals directly reflecting the expectations for higher levels of student performance as set forth in the Common Core standards. Also provided in the plan will be the appropriate accommodations and modifications that students may receive that will serve to remove the barriers so that our special students may be provided maximum access to core standards. In preparing our special education teachers, Dr. Hazel has arranged for professional development throughout the month of May in inclusionary and differentiated instructional practices to support the implementation of the standards. This will provide a springboard, an opportunity for the entire Freehold Regional High School District Special Forces team of teachers to come together, gain knowledge, and engage in shared conversations as we embark on our mission. The core content standards and its learning progressions should provide clarity in charting the course of instruction from where a student is performing to the expectations for the grade level. Our students can be active learners in the 21st century learning environments when they have instructional supports that invite their engagement, instructional accommodations that change materials and procedures but not the standards, and assistive technology that ensures access to standards and curriculum. Michael Carolee, Executive Director of the Council of Great City Schools, said, and this is kind of like this, the Common Core standards finally made real the promise of American public education to expect the best from all of our school children. And this leads me to another important factor in the education of our special needs students, and that is proper placement in one of the many program offerings in the Freehold High School District. My colleagues and I will present to you the continuum of programs, beginning with those representing what we refer to in special education as the least restrictive environment. These least restrictive environment provisions ensure that to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities are educated with their non-disabled peers. With this in mind, I will begin by introducing our least restrictive program, known as the In-Class Resource Program. The In-Class Resource Program is designed to provide support for special education students placed in general education classes. A special education teacher and a general education teacher work together to help students to achieve this environment. Various co-teaching models are applied and modifications and accommodations are implemented for a student need. The next program is known as the Resource Center Program, wherein a smaller class size enables the teacher to provide a more individualized approach to instruction, specifically tailored to each student's learning needs. High standards and expectations for achievement are maintained by all teachers in each program. Curricular requirements are commensurate with those of general education courses. Courses offered in each program include those required for graduation in the academic areas of English, mathematics, science, social studies, and classical and world language. And thank you so much for paying attention to my long speech. And I'd like to introduce you now to Rosalia Minervini, who's the Special Education Supervisor at Bristol. Yeah.
and I promise I will not be as long as this statement. This evening, Ms. Renee Davis did highlight that we will be discussing the full continuum of services offered within our school district. Tonight, I'd like to touch upon our self-contained programs, and particularly, I'd like to discuss our cognitively impaired programs, which are housed at Freehold High School and Freehold Township High School, in addition to our learning and language disabilities programs, which are actually offered at Hillside High School, Freehold, and Marble High Schools. It's important to highlight that although our students are within self-contained programs, they are rendered the opportunities to have mobility options throughout their day. They're not confined to one classroom, which is what a typical self-contained setting emulates. We have truly cultivated an environment for our students where they are gaining independence and self-advocacy built into their everyday programs. Essentially, the self-contained programs do emulate what the general education curriculum offers. However, our teachers are differentiating, they're modifying, and they're slowing down their pace so that our students can achieve at their own individual levels. Furthermore, our teachers are infusing functional academics within their curriculum. And functional academics essentially mean that they're infusing life skills, social skills, and they're helping to tighten the gaps in which they obtain. In saying so, teachers are truly focusing on student IEPs, which provide individualized goals and objectives. The goals and objectives that are outlined in each child's IEP are written to determine where their gaps lie and what areas they need to continue to build upon. Therefore, they're focusing truly on the core academics and the goals and objectives in which each child requires in order to grow. Another important feature of our self-contained programs is the great emphasis on vocational training. The majority of our students transition to some type of work-related post-secondary outcome. Therefore, we're consistently infusing transition throughout the program. And transition does begin as early as 8th grade. It continues on throughout high school. And each year, case managers and teachers meet to discuss what that post-secondary goal would actually be. In addition, we do provide vocational assessment courses. In a little bit, you'll hear a little bit more about that from Mrs. Fitzhenry. She'll address our STEP program, which truly highlights our vocational training for our students. In addition, we serve as liaison to outside agencies such as DDD and DVRS. I would spell out what the acronyms are, but you wouldn't understand them anyway, so I'll save you. And essentially, our outside agencies are there to secure services for students such as self-directed day services, and any type of service that they might require once exiting high school. So if our students are not truly independent enough to become members of society without those services, we try to secure that, and we offer opportunities for the outside agencies to come into our high schools, or we actually set up commitments for them. Finally, I would like to emphasize how important communication is within all of our programs. We truly keep communication at the forefront of each of our priorities, not only as a supervisor, but as the teachers and case managers, because the more reinforcement that we have of goals from school to home, the stronger our students' achievement increases. And also, by reinforcing what's taking place in school and having that consistently conveyed at home, our parents are able to reinforce those same skills. And in closing, I'd like to stress to you the importance of setting high expectations for our students. Not only those in the inclusion classrooms, but those in self-contained programs, because our ultimate goal is for our students to be educated in the least restrictive environment. That being said, we're very confident about our course offerings and the services that we provide for our students, because we can guarantee that our students will be successful once graduating. Thank you, and now I'd like to introduce to you Mrs. Debbie Perez-Dodds.
Of individual supports based on their individualized education plan. Each year, the case managers, students, teachers, and parents get together to decide what services the students may need and what supports are necessary for them to be successful. The slide behind me shows you some of the support services that are available within our district, so I will briefly go around and describe what the services are. Starting with the speech Speech is provided to students in either a group or individual setting and generally addresses their social skills, conversational skills, language pragmatics, or even articulation. For students that need to address their fine and motor skills, we also provide occupational and physical therapy. One area that we are aggressively looking into is the assistive technology resources. Many colleges provide these services to our students, so we're moving ourselves forward with this. These programs provide our students with tools to help them succeed in the academic setting. One program that we currently use in some of the high schools is called a word prediction program. It allows the students, as they're typing into the computer, it would also read to them what they are typing, thus allowing them to make all the corrections themselves. Another program that some of us use is called the Read and Write Bold program. This program allows students to access articles from the internet and will read the articles to them. This is especially important to our students who many, as I'm sure you know, have reading challenges. So by having the articles read to them, they're able to compile their written reports or even the senior research paper, which sometimes poses a big challenge for many of the students. As I indicated earlier, this is an area that we are continuing to expand upon because we recognize that the colleges are offering these programs to our students. Paraprofessionals are a very important part of our programs. We have many paraprofessionals that support the academics in our programs. They will support our students with medical needs, social needs, or academically. Another big part of our support services are the after-school programs, and this is generally for the students in the self-contained program. The students engage in activities within their school building, generally to promote socialization skills. Many of the schools also include the general education students working within these programs. The big highlight of the programs are the 3 dances that we hold each year in the fall, Valentine's Day, and most recently Cinco de Mayo at Coates Neck High School. The students come together from the self-contained programs and they really have a tremendous time. I know Mr. Sampson had the pleasure of joining us at the Cinco de Mayo dance. Another program is the Peer Mentor Program. The Peer Mentor Program works closely with the after-school program. The goal of this program is to involve our students in extracurricular clubs or even within some of the sports to serve as assistants on some of these teams. The goal, again, is to involve the special ed students with the general education student population. Many of the peer mentors also participate within the after-school program. And the overall goal of both of those programs is to promote socialization for our students within the school and also when they're out in the community. Modifications are very important to our students in all programs. This could be modifications for classroom instruction or modifications for any state testing. This consists of extended time, the use of study guides, a large print, for state testing. We place many of our students in small groups. We will read the test questions to students that may have that as a modification and the multiple choice responses. It depends on the students and it depends what is specified in each of the IEPs. And lastly is counseling. Counseling is provided to our students through the Child Study Team social worker, the school psychologist, the guidance counselors, or the student assistant counselors located within each high school. And I think I covered. Those are all the support services we provide. As you can see, we have numerous. Again, it's just based on an individual basis and according to what each student's individualized education plan specifies. Okay, at this time, I'd like to introduce Carolee Canto from Howell High School.
The Autism Program for the district is housed at Howard High School. I hope you had a chance to look around and see some of the artwork that was made by our students. We have some in the back. Make sure you check that out before you leave. They really did an amazing job. And this beautiful butterfly was made by our students during the week of HESPA. Children and adults with autism typically show difficulties in the areas of communication and social interactions. It is considered to be a spectrum disorder because it affects every student differently. The rate of autism is increasing. According to the CDC, the rates of autism nationally are 1 in 88. But for New Jersey, it's 1 in 49, and for boys, it's 1 in 29. There are no significant differences between racial or ethnic groups. Rates in New Jersey are higher because we're better at detecting it. We have better trained individuals in the medical field, and also our teachers and educational staff are experts in the field. So therefore, we are more in tune to the cues of it, and we are able to diagnose it at an earlier age than other states in the nation. However, although it's a spectrum disorder, 80% of the cases in New Jersey are identified as being in the most severe range of the disorder. Projected changes for clinical diagnosis should not affect our rates. There's no known cause or cure for autism, and is believed to have both genetic and environmental links. Therefore, we must stay current with our interventions and our educational programs. We have to be progressive and plan accordingly for each student. In the program at Howell, we have a board-certified behavior analyst. It's known as a BCBA. This is the highest level of behavior analyst in the field. She comes and she looks at behaviors of the students, plans programs, and also serves as a case manager. We're always looking to the future. We spend a lot of time speaking with the middle schools and the case managers, going back as far as 6th, 7th grade to make sure that we count for all the students before they walk into our buildings. The Autism Program is well planned and thought out because we have to hit every need. We already have a wide variety of research-based programs in place, but I'm going to speak about 2 new initiatives that we have for next year coming up. The first one is a reading program. It's called Linda Mood-Bell's Visualizing and Verbalizing. We currently have many resources in the classroom that address the actual skill of reading. However, this is a research-based program that specifically is designed to address reading comprehension. Language arts teachers and speech therapists will teach students to visualize concepts and apply that imagery to higher order thinking skills. It's exactly how it sounds. We are teaching the students to visualize a picture in their head and be able to articulate what the details of what they're saying. And we take that for granted. That's, you would think that everybody would be able to have that image in their head, and it's not always there. So this program is research-based, specifically with students with autism. It has been shown that students with autism have lower levels of connections between regions of the brain that affect reading and language. Individuals with weak concept imagery have difficulty with reading and critical thinking. They may also have difficulty expressing ideas in an organized manner. Students are taught a method for looking at a picture. They're instructed on steps they use to identify details and enhance understanding. Now, this is a skill they'll learn through the reading program, but once the skill becomes more natural to them, they're able to apply that to any subject area, any content that requires the students to read for understanding. So we will be using this in the Autism Program as well as in our cognitive programs and in our LLD programs. So in September, we're projected to have state training from the trainers from the Linda Mood-Bell here to come and train the teachers through this programs. Students who use this program have shown significant improvements in language processing skills, reading comprehension, and also expression. So this will be used in class as a reading program. It will also be used with the speech therapist so they can tie together and support the efforts with students. Okay, and lastly, we have a technology piece. This is an iPad app called Oloco 2. We will be using this app in conjunction with other speech-language services. Technology is a wonderful thing, but we don't want it to use it in a way that detracts from a functional life skill. The intent of this program is not to replace language or to reduce direct instruction in getting our students to be able to articulate and use their voice for communication. It's just another path to increase communication. It is less costly than other devices of the past. They typically cost around $7,000 per device for the students. While this, once you have an iPad, it's a $200 app. It also can be used on an iPod Touch or an iPhone, so it's practical for the students. It doesn't, they can use it in their homes, and carrying around an iPad or an iPod Touch is not something that makes them look any different or feel any different with their peers. Okay, I have a short video that demonstrates how this program works.
Hello, welcome to the conversation.
First of all, pronounce this for me.
Sure. It's called Proloquo to go. It's Latin for speak out loud.
I feel excited.
Tell me, what does this do? Where did the idea come from?
Proloquo to go is an iPhone app and it helps people who have difficulty speaking. It's children with autism, individuals with Down syndrome, adults with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease.
Let's do something fun. Watch TV and movies, TV news.
You can press pictures and words on the iPhone, the iPad here, and it'll speak out loud for them. So I can show you, I can just tap a word,
Hi, how are you?
and then it'll speak out loud with high-quality text-to-speech.
Before, what would those, people who had difficulty speaking, what kind of programs were out there available for them?
There's a number of companies who have made this technology for many years. But the issue is that the systems typically cost about $7,000 funded by Medicare and Medicaid. People think that's too expensive, and it is too expensive. Where with an iPad, with Put It Go, it can get down to about under $1,000.
I feel good.
Okay, and you gave us a little demonstration, but give us more.
Oh.
Give us a scenario and how it would play out. Hold it up so we can see.
Yeah, so you can imagine a child sitting with their mother or father, and they're hungry or thirsty, so they could just tap, I want. And let's just say the mother is asking her son, she goes, what would you like? He can tap a drink.
A drink of apple juice.
And then it goes up into a sentence window, and he could speak out that whole sentence.
I want a drink of apple juice.
Do you imagine this a next step for this? I mean, where do you want to go next?
We're speaking with our local congressman, and he's helping us navigate through the health insurance system. And so funding it for people regardless of their ability to afford it is one of the goals.
And where do they get the software if they're looking to get the software right now?
Right through Apple's App Store.
It's on the App Store with all those other silly apps. This app is there. All right, I'll say it now. Goodbye. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
So you can see that this would give students the ability to communicate and reduce frustration and open so many more doors for them. So thank you for your time. And next, I'd like to introduce Kelly Fitzhenry from Freehold, Pennsylvania.
Rosalia Minervini mentioned transition, and two of the transition programs we have in district are the STEP program and the workplace training program. The Student Transition Employment Program, or the STEP program, is a comprehensive program designed to provide students with disabilities lifelong employment skills. This transition program encompasses both school-based training and community-based instruction through structured learning experiences. The goal of the program is to provide students with career awareness and exploration in structured, supervised, authentic settings, so by graduation they're able to achieve placement in competitive employment. STEP is connected and supported by a variety of federal, state, and local agencies, such as the Department of Labor, OSHA, DDD, DBRS, Department of Education, Access Link, and so on. The transportation for STEP and the workplace training program, which I'm going to speak about in a minute, is available on a daily basis to our students. And this really sets us aside from any other program in the state because they're able to go out into the community to experience authentic work sites. Our community-based job sites also offer natural supports in the form of designated worksite mentors. In addition, the program strongly believes in partnerships between the school, parents, job coaches, agencies, and employers. The STEP program began at Freehold Township High School as a school-based employment orientation program funded by a grant from the Division of Vocational Education back in 1987. Through the vision of administrators and dedicated teachers and job coaches, it has evolved into a multifaceted program fostering the development of entry-level employment skills and providing supportive employment opportunities for students. This vital transition program continues to expand in size and commitment, and next year each high school will house its own STEP program. Students involved in the program participate in 8 to 10 week-long job experiences. This may begin at age 16 based upon developmental needs. Structured learning plans are developed for each student and placement, along with objectives which are identified and assessed. Really, it's a shift in philosophy from seat time in a traditional customary classroom to student-centered approach, allowing for flexible movement in diverse settings, which has just enabled this program to be extremely successful and for our students to be successful. Because the STEP program has done so well, we have expanded it based on needs to the workplace training program. And this provides a full immersion, community-based work experience in order to meet the transitional needs of learning and language disabled students, seeing out their last year or two of entitlement. The program consists of 2 components, a classroom instruction component and school and community-based work site training. Courses include functional academics, life skills, and vocational assessment. Supervised internships are approximately 2.5 to 3 hours per day for an entire marking period. So every day our students are going out to the work site. The goal of the workplace training program is for our interns to become independent and achieve paid competitive employment. Many of our interns this year had seasonal work, and we have several that still have maintained their job and have promised for a job this summer. We have approximately 75 community partnerships, and at this time I'd like to ask Brian Brogan to come up here for a minute. He's representing all of our work sites, and he is at Central State. Central State provides an amazing opportunity for our students because they can work within the gym area, they can work in the child care, they can work in the coffee shop, they can work in the front desk. So they have a variety of experiences. They also allow our students to come once a week and be gym members. And they come and they work out with a trainer, and they go into the locker room and change and come out, and then they go to the cafe. It works on our life skills, our speech and language. The teacher comes out and does social integration in an authentic setting out at the cafe. So they have really embraced us and enabled us to just almost take over. Everybody knows our students, so it's wonderful. So I just wanted to thank him. The workplace training program itself this year was formalized. So prior to this year, we really just piloted it. We were fortunate enough to have a room dedicated to this program where there's a kitchen facility, laundry facilities, we have a structured learning experience teacher, we have job coaches, paraprofessionals, we have technology available, and like I said, we have the transportation available every day for these kids. So it's really exciting. We currently have 6 students in the program, and for next year, we're slotted to double that. So we're going to have 12 to 13 students. So the program is growing, and the district is supporting that, which is phenomenal, and so is the community, because we need these students to be able to attain these skills. And not only the work skills, but the soft skills, because we're sending these students out into the work site, and we need to make sure that they're safe, because they are disabled students. They are students that may not have the best judgment at times, that don't have those soft skills when they become uncomfortable and they withdraw. So this program really provides that because it supports that until we feel as educators that we're comfortable enough that the student, the intern feels comfortable to be independent. So it's a very exciting program here in town. So I thank you for your time, and I'd like to introduce Carolee Moorfield from Iep.
Good evening. I would like to thank the Board of Education and Mr. Sampson for giving me the opportunity to speak about the Regional Learning Academy, or known as RLA. Last year, the Freeville Regional High School District recognized the demand for specialized services to meet the needs of students with challenging behaviors without sending them to an out-of-district program. As a result, they supported the development of a therapeutic high school, and initially, we brought back 11 students. Currently, we have 18 students on our roster with a projection of maxing out at 30 next year. The benefit of keeping students in district is that they will maintain ties to their community, and also it avails them the opportunity to participate in any of the clubs, activities, sports that are offered at a comprehensive high school. And this truly helps develop a sense of belonging to the students if they are part of something. RLA offers students an opportunity to be educated in a supportive environment that includes teachers and 3 clinicians that support the students emotionally. All the students are consistently shown respect, and at all times the clinicians dignify their self-worth on a daily basis, even if they don't recognize it within themselves. All students are involved in group therapy on a daily basis and individual therapy at least 1 to 2 days a week. Some of our seniors this year just recently mentioned that RLA gave them confidence. Some of them stated that it helped them develop the self-monitoring skills that they needed to be successful. And another student said that it gave him the skills that he knows that he can carry on to his career or on the college that he plans on attending. Another important component of the program is the family support. We recognize that it is a partnership with the parents, and as a result, the clinicians do hold a monthly family support night and family sessions, which are held monthly. But more so than that, many of these students do have challenging behaviors, so the clinicians connect them with community resources that they may need as an additional support. RLA has a personalized, student-centered approach that addresses the barriers to learning for all students. Students' educational needs are met by highly qualified or dual-certified teachers and tailored to their individual needs. The teachers respect and support the potential inherent in all the students in RLA. And I just want to stress that the paraprofessionals also are an integral part of RLA, because without them, we really wouldn't be able to support the students as well as we do. They work with the students also individually and in group, and it's a true community and partnership between the paraprofessionals and the teachers. All the staff in the program attended a week-long professional development opportunity during the summer, and also attended many professional development opportunities during the school year. But more important than that, they meet every single morning to discuss the academic and emotional progress of the students in the program. And they talk about the different strategies and techniques that they're finding effective with the students. Each classroom has been planned with ensuring students have access to the technology, such as computers, the smartboard, and student responders. Students are given opportunities to interact with technology, to foster the aptitudes required for success in college and in work. This technology is also one way that we individualize learning and personalize it for the students, either through the Achieve 3000 program or the Khan Academy in math. It also gives students a chance and a means to demonstrate their understanding and application of the standards through alternate assessments, such as making movies. They made a movie called The Scopes Monkey Trial, or develop them a rap like they did on the World War I. Students are taught the importance of citizenship through a community forum that's held every single Friday. And during this meeting, all the teachers, staff, the administrators are part of this meeting. We sit in a circle. We sit in a circle so we all feel connected. And during this meeting, the students, it gives them a chance to express their concerns or issues that they want to talk about. And what I like about the community, just the last community meeting, we had a new student, and he welcomed, he thanked the students, his colleagues, for making him feel welcome in RLA. And some of the students have expressed that it makes them feel like they're a family, that they're part of something, and I think that's really important for these students. Recently, we also had 2 students that just came into the program who did not attend school. And in a matter of weeks, the one student is up to 5 days a week now attending RLA, and the other student has made considerable progress in his attendance also. And that also shows the hard work that the clinicians and the teachers and the paraprofessionals have done in developing a rapport with the students in the program and meeting their individual needs and making them feel that they do have self-worth and they are important in their lives. This year, we offered a rigorous curriculum in all the content areas. And next year, as we grow, we will be adding Spanish, financial literacy, and career vocational class. As you look around the room, you'll see some of the art that the students in RLA have worked on. We have found that art is great therapy, and that it helps unlock the students' creative potential and teaches the students a skill of expression, which is vital in the worlds of work, community, and personal empowerment. The art that you see here has been on display at Art in Monmouth County. And the thing that I want to stress about this project, it was a cross-curricular project, because the student who had to go to art to see if we could display it had to practice his interviewing skills because they interviewed him, and he had to write an essay. And I just wanted to explain a little bit about the art that you're seeing. The left side of the face was painted by our art teacher, and it's how she saw the student. And the right side of the painting is how the student saw himself. This student, the second one here, he wants to be a doctor. That's why he painted muscles. And I just wanted to point out, I'll walk over here, the dark one behind Mr. Moses. He was a young man who started this student-driven project. And the right-hand side, he was feeling depressed that day. So the art teacher decided she would paint how she saw him, the beauty within him, and he painted how he saw himself. And at the end of the night, if you'll just go and look at it, you're going to see a little teardrop. And it was just unbelievable how it just formed. And it was a very emotional thing for him because he felt that really stood how he was feeling that day. It was just a teardrop. And the young lady at the far end, she just wanted to feel beautiful because she doesn't feel beautiful, and that was important to her. And the second piece of art is a young lady who just had a lot of thoughts going on in her head. So all these paintings had meaning to the students, and it really helped them work through a lot of the things that they were feeling. Some of the other students in the program are involved in the structured learning experiences through the STEP program, and they do go out once a month in the community and they work. Others, we have them involved in volunteer work. They worked at the soup kitchen, and they're going to the senior center actually in the end of May. The word community can be defined in many ways. One definition states, a community is a group of 2 or more people who have been able to accept and transcend their differences regardless of the diversity of their backgrounds. This enables them to communicate effectively and openly and work together towards goals identified as being for their common good. In RLA, we have community. Not only a community of students, but a community of staff who lead students to the understanding that there is room for everyone, and each individual in RLA makes a commitment to support one another emotionally and academically. And at this time, I would just like to ask all the staff in RLA, paraprofessionals, child study team members, if you would just Please stand for a moment. Any other special education teachers or support staff also please stand. On behalf of my colleagues, the other supervisors, and myself, we really couldn't do it without you. It is a partnership between the child study team, the teachers, and the parents for the success of all the students here. And when I think about you, what you do so much work on a daily basis, and this picture to me symbolizes what you do. When I was looking at it and the beauty that was created by the students in the Autism Program. The students come to you as freshmen, as like cocoons, and you nurture them and you feed them and you develop their strengths and their weaknesses. And right before our eyes, by the senior year, they go through this metamorphosis, and we're ready to let them go out to the post-secondary options, whether it's college or work or whatever it might be. And it's really a testimony to you and what you do for the students. And I want to thank you personally for all your hard work. We're going to close the program with Mrs. Patenary, who is going to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Throughout the state, the Office of Special Ed sponsors 8 regional Dare to Dream student leadership conferences. This May, each one of our high schools will be represented at the Middlesex County Dare to Dream, facilitating small breakout sessions for skills needed for transition. The conference also features presentations from accomplished students with disabilities who have demonstrated exemplary self-advocacy leadership skills. To conclude our presentation this evening, at this time I would like to introduce Ms. Sarah Kim. She will be one of our keynote speakers. Each one of our schools has a keynote speaker, but tonight she's going to speak for you.
The day I took my first breath, my mom took her last. Complications of my birth left me with cerebral palsy. The angels took my mom, who rests forever in peace and always watches over me. New York, Hawaii, Alaska, Kentucky, and back to New York. These are the places I've been before settling in Jersey 11 years ago. A lot has happened since. At first, they wanted to enroll me in a school where rehabilitation took precedence over academics. You know, where kids like me are supposed to go. But no, the school later said. They believed my intelligence level warranted a higher institution, one where I can excel. So off to public school I went. Now, the school didn't know what to do with a child like me, so they put me in a special ed classroom for first and second grade, and then with an inclusion teacher. I always performed above average in academics. Athletic, I am not. School became my game. A game without set rules, but I always seemed to be the winner. The ride wasn't always smooth and steady, and the trophy was sometimes hard to get. But this made the award more precious and fulfilling. There was this girl who made me feel I didn't belong. She told me I was the ugliest and stupidest person ever alive, and I believed her. And then there was a teacher who made 6th grade a living nightmare. He thought I'd never be good enough, and I believed him too. But things started to turn around when I entered middle school. There, I made everlasting friends, and teachers realized I had potential to do anything. For 2 years, I held the highest average in all my classes, always performing to my best. I even had the honor to give a commencement speech at graduation. High school was the next chapter. Freshman year was a breeze, academic-wise. I was still placed in average classes with inclusion teachers. I earned all A's without much effort. The work was too easy for me. Please, I could do this in my sleep. It was time to speak up, and I did. Sophomore year, and I am now in honors. That's more like it. Although I attained A's before, now I really worked hard to earn them. It was a vivid symbol of my success. Last summer, I had the opportunity to go to an academic program at Columbia in the Big Apple. I was living the college life in the city that never sleeps. My heart belongs in the city, I just know. Columbia has become my goal, a goal I don't know I'll achieve, but I will certainly try my best. Now, near the end of my junior year, my future is still unclear. I know I have many choices, colleges, career, decisions still to be made. Whether I go to Columbia or Brookdale, I will always do the best I can, treasuring each moment of my life like it's a blessing, a gift from the heavens above. My life has been filled with obstacles, but somehow I always overcome them. They were stepping stones to success and happiness, reaching the light at the end. This is my story. I have persevered against life's struggles. I remain hopeful that I will continue to meet life's challenges head on. My angel forever watching over me.
Anyone on the board have any questions of the supervisor? Well, on behalf of the board, we'd like to thank you for coming tonight and all the work you do. And also, we'd like to thank all the special ed teachers and all the work they do. And I don't want to be remiss, I want to thank Dr. Nicole Hazel for all the work that she does too. And I think we have an excellent program.
Actually, if I may, Marianne just whispered in my ear that Miss Kim made National Honor Society.
Wow. Follow that. Thank you. I mean, that was, I think that, these presentations are supposed to give a kind of a snapshot of what our programs do. but when you look at the impact, sometimes we lose the impact on the individual's life, both student and staff members. And I think that to see so many people from the classroom come out to support this evening and show how vested they are in the programs is tremendous. I think that you don't just walk through a door and teach kids. You obviously have to have a passion for it. And the fact that for this presentation so many folks came out to do that, I think is a testament to your passion. I think that our school district does so many unbelievable things on a daily basis for kids that go unrecognized, unnoticed, not picked up, and that you change lives, and sometimes our students change our lives as well. So that really kind of captured it all together. So thank you. Okay, on with monitoring, state monitoring, what it's really all about. So the Fredo Regional High School District was one of the first districts in the state to go something known as the Education Jobs Consolidated Monitoring. What that means is this, is that the state used to come out and monitor us in pieces. And they might do IDEA in one piece, they might do some of our NCLB funding in another piece. They might do any federal stimulus funds in a third bucket. But what we went through this year was a consolidated monitoring, which took IDEA, Title I, Title IIA, Title III, which are all NCLB, No Child Left Behind funded monies. Ed Jobs, which was a one-time cash influx from the federal government. If you remember from a couple years back, that money came in to use for staffing purposes, but it was a one and done. Perkins funding as well. So in February, we had about a 3-day period where we had 10 to 12 state monitors here throughout the school district, and they spent a lot of time interviewing staff members, pouring through data, looking at how we fund our programs with the federal funding, and made what happens after that is the state releases a report to the district, which we received last week. The district then has to respond with corrective action plans around all the recommendations that the state makes. We have that report tonight. I have a copy of that report here. I'll go through some of the highlights from it, but it will be posted in its entirety on our website so that everyone can review it. I will say that if you look across the board on the DOE website, there's a small number of districts that have gone through this monitoring. We're sort of, I think because of our structure, we tend to be first up in the bucket with some of the newer processes of the state. But I think if you look at some of the other ones in the state have been done, that you'll see quite how well we did comparatively speaking. As a part of the corrective action plan, we have certain recommendations that are made to us, and then we have to stipulate how we're going to remedy that situation. So I'm happy to say that we've already got our plan in place, and we're completed in that sense, and we've stated we're going to approve it tonight, hopefully, and send it off to the state. But we also, what we found was a couple things, is that some of the recommendations we had already clarified, or there was some misinterpretation. For instance, you have to have a letter under your Title I funds for your parents and your students, but it has to be combined. We had it separately, some other recommendations, because you have to put it together, things of that nature. But I'm going to go through just quickly 3 of the main buckets of what what our recommendations were, and then what we've responded with. So under Title I, expenditures under Title I have been tracked by Title I administrator in accordance with grant requirements. The recommendation under that bucket for Title I requires us to formally track our expenditures in subcategories. So Mr. Boyce took care of that already, to break that out into subcategories. We also have to, under Title I, track our school attendance with the grant requirements. So we have to formalize those expenditures by school attendance within our financial software, which we've already done. We also have to put in an internal control measure to periodically review the list of debarred vendors throughout the state. So we've done that. You can see that this stuff gets a little bit monotonous. We had a recommendation that we needed a policy update, which we found after the monitors had left, we do have a policy for. So we simply sent that off to, what was that? Do you recall offhand the specific policy? I just missed it.
Yeah, but the policy was regarding the procedure for requesting reimbursement for federal funds, which is through an online system called the Iep. It's a pretty regulated process. There's not much judgment or decisions to make. So we had back in October 2010 memorialized basically the directions of how to proceed with requesting reimbursement in policy, and we did include that in the report and send that back off to the state.
And one of the things we felt is that although we had clarified some of these items prior to, there is a waiver, but you can contest this. We didn't feel it prudent to contest it. We'd rather just compile the documentation within a week, and we're prepared to send it off to the state because we feel very comfortable about making any corrections that they recommend. Under Title I, there was a recommendation on, as I mentioned, our notification letter to parents. A letter was provided. I'll just read our synopsis of it. Provided parents September 2011 regarding eligibility status for children with Title I services. The letter also included current parent involvement policy and the school parent compact, which is required under that directive. And we also introduced select families, eligible families to the Title I webpage where additional information was provided. The audit finder requires us to provide eligibility and exit criteria information in one document. So we put it all in one document now, so we had it on multiple documents, so now it's all in one document. The school compact was missing one area, that the student agreement, so we added a student agreement to that under Title I funds. And timesheets. One of the things that we were supposed to do apparently was track the actual time our staff members that are paid for through these funds spent in the classroom. We're able to do that through our Genesis software system, so we made that correction as well. And I should note that this monitoring really encompasses the period July 2010 to February of this year. In terms of corrective action in the field of special education, we instituted a new IEP software this past year called Iep Direct, which has cleaned up for us a number of our IEP inconsistencies across the board, so we instituted that as part of it. That was one of the recommendations, to make sure that we were as consistent as possible with how we were developing our IEPs. So we also instituted 2 child study team administrative code trainings to help enhance awareness of best practices, and we'll continue to offer child study team training and special ed supervisors at least 2 of those trainings a year throughout next year as well to meet that recommendation. And then we also had to make sure that we consistently included a classroom observation component in the functional assessments evaluations of child study team members, which we've complied with to make sure that that is, and we're also creating a standardized template to be used by the child study team members to ensure the classroom observation and other assessments are included in every component that they do. Correct me if I misspeak, Dr. Davis.
It's an additional way to get more data on the students as we project out their next IEP with that assessment. And you're absolutely correct in moving toward the IEP Direct to have a more uniform template that we're working from in the district. They wanted us to kind of hone in on our least restrictive environment statement and give more specificity in how we as a district are encouraging students to return to our district programs and to go up that continuum, which I think is a testament to what you saw today, the work. Sometimes you don't always see it on paper, but it's happening. So we're just going to be a little bit more articulate with how we communicate that through that section of the IEP.
Yeah, and the IEPs that were reviewed for the most part actually go back prior to the institution of Iep Direct, which has cleaned up most of these problems that we had with them to begin with, but they asked for very specific documentation from each year. So we've also cleaned up a recommendation in speech-only IEPs that reflected the template. So those were the suggested corrective actions from the state. This document in its entirety will be posted on the website for everybody's review. We will approve that hopefully tonight and send it off to the state, and hopefully they'll come back and simply say that our corrective action plan is accepted, and we will hopefully not hear hide nor hair for several years hence. A couple other items before I get to a few updates. I have to publicly congratulate, it's been on our website, but Stan Kova was named the Barnes & Noble National Teacher of the Year, and Abby Thompson, who's a junior at Howell High School, wrote an essay about Stan. And he won the Regional Teacher of the Year at Barnes & Noble, but then he went on to win the National Teacher of the Year. So he won out of 14,000 entries. And if you know Stan, he's the most humble, unassuming individual you're going to find who, I think his first quote was that there's a ton of other folks that deserve this more than I do. And Abby Thompson's a terrific student who took the time to really kind of capture Stan in an essay. So I think it's a terrific honor. A few other items. We had the Acting Commissioner of Banking and Insurance today at Marlboro High School, Kenneth Kowalowski. He was terrific. He addressed about 60 of our students there and really honed in on a sort of an overview of financial, overview of his role, but also some, I thought, real quick hitter takeaways for students related to their own financial understanding and best practices. And I thought he related to the kids so well. It was an impressive showing, and I have to thank Shana Howell over there, the social studies supervisor, for organizing that. I thought it was a terrific event, and they were, from his team there, said it was the first time that they had come out to a school and seen the whole administrative team there to welcome them and support them, and they were kind of shocked by it. So hopefully we'll get them back in some of our other schools as well. Kelly mentioned or maybe it was Debbie Perez-Giles actually mentioned the Cinco de Mayo dance at Colts Neck High School, and she said that in passing, but 3 times a year we have these after-school dances with cognitively impaired students in the high school, and it's one of each one of those days are one of the best days of the year, because those kids they get bused to a particular spot. The Valentine's dance was at Township, the Cinco de Mayo dance was at Colts Neck High School, and kids are literally bounding off the buses to get to the dance, and then all kinds of craziness breaks loose on the dance floor. I channeled my 1980s Michael Jackson, I think, a little bit there. But it is a wonderful outlet for students who don't always get exposed to those types of outlets in a really welcoming environment. And the thing that always stands out to me, I've been to 2 of those now, is that the special education staff came out in pretty large numbers to support those kids today. They turn out in unbelievable numbers at those dances to support the kids, and it's again a testament to their commitment. A few big ticket updates. First, our Iep, just a general statement on our energy savings improvement plan. At this point in time, we have on the agenda tonight to rescind the the award to Tozer Energy Company for that work. We are doing that in the best interest of the district to make sure that we issue an RFP moving forward that has no exposure for the school district, that is the most expedient way of getting that project done. So that is on the table tonight. Comment, Mr. Boyce?
I just wanted to note that actually it's an addendum, which I have here, and I will read before we enter the public session.
Thank you. Also, just to comment briefly, with the bus accident that occurred a few weeks back at Freehold Township, that investigation is ongoing. We are continuing to work with the local authorities involving that matter, and we'll continue to assist in any way possible the thorough investigation of what caused that bus accident that day. Finally, a brief update to the events that took place at Manalapan High School on May 2nd. As an overview to what happened, we had a painting project that took place in the boiler room that began in the morning. I can say unequivocally we don't paint during the day. At approximately 10:30 a.m., staff members in the gym area reported a strong odor in the gym area and moved some classes there. We ultimately, the administration there took swift action with classes leaving the area and moved them to another location. At that point in time, no other areas, no odors were detected in areas surrounding that location, outside of that location. Ultimately, emergency medical services and township and county officials were notified of the concerns, trying to figure out what was causing the odor. And the bottom line was we made the decision to close school early even though the building was cleared for occupancy. And that was because the odor was still very strong. Obviously, it was having an impact on folks, and we weren't going to fool around with it, and that's why the decision was ultimately made to close school early. But when something like that happens, it doesn't happen instantaneously. We have to marshal the buses that are not necessarily prepared to come prior to dismissal time. So we staggered the dismissal beginning at 1 o'clock as buses arrived, and we knew that all buses would not be able to arrive on scene until 1:30. So we moved students to specific locations in the building, extended classroom periods, and kept them there to keep them away from the wing with the smell. We did not allow the last 2 lunches to run because the food had sat out and those odors were there, and we didn't want kids eating any of that food even though the quote-unquote air was clear. We also didn't allow students to return to their lockers in that area because, again, we didn't want them walking through where the smell was. It was about 60 degrees that day, so we thought that would be okay to move forward. We had 2 different air quality control checks that day. By noon, the building was cleared. We brought in county officials the following morning to make sure it was still clear. Again, there was nothing irregular in the air at that point in time. I can say that our staff members do have OSHA and Right to Know training on an annual basis. I attended it there myself this year. As a result of this, I directed our school district safety compliance officer to engage in a thorough and complete review of our practices related to painting and to clearly categorize and label the paint that we had in our district. And I've asked Mr. Boyce to conduct an external audit of all our practices and B&G from soup to nuts. It was unacceptable. So that's the status of where we are today.
Before we get to the board reports, I want to go on record congratulate Stan Kova for being named Teacher of the Year. I had the pleasure of teaching across the hallway from him for 30 years. And the one thing I can say is that he's the kind of teacher that I wish my kids had. And so we're very lucky to have people like him in the district.
To piggyback on that, I'm a former student of his. He taught me AP history. And he was pretty much the definition of what it means to be passionate and excited to teach. And as all of us know, that can make all the difference to a student. I was proud to be his student then, and I'm still proud to be now.
board reports. We have Finance Committee.
Okay. Well, last Thursday, we met and we talked about two topics. One was the food service program. The other one was the vending machines. As probably everybody knows, Sodexo is the food service provider for the district. They've been with the district since 2004. They essentially serve 2,000 lunches per day, about 120 breakfasts per day. What's really new there, I'm sure everyone's familiar with Michelle Obama's been on advocating people eat certain types of foods, and basically this has come down to the states. So as of late, the states had a slew of meetings about new regulations. For instance, they want us to decrease the amount of protein, and actually there's various stations in the cafeteria. So they're demanding that every single station has fruit, every single station has vegetables, every single station has milk. So they're really coming down on micromanaging how the cafeteria runs. They're even getting into phasing in the move on pasta. They are demanding that we not serve white pasta anymore. It's going to have to be whole wheat pasta. Now, like everything else that comes down from on high, this is going to cost more money. So it's eventually going to cost the kids more money. But the bottom line is we need to meet all these regulations to be eligible for subsidies for free and reduced price lunches. One other big thing with respect to potential change down the road with respect to food service is implementing a POS system. I know at least in Marlboro K through 8, and I think we discussed at the meeting at all the other K through 8s, you can pre-purchase all the kids' lunchroom spending beforehand, and then the child goes into the cafeteria and pays with a card instead of cash. So we don't have that right now. But potentially down the road, we may look at implementing this thing, which would enable a parent to prepay, to indicate any food allergies, and really monitor what their kid is buying. I can speak from personal experience. My wife, I got a child who will only buy hot dogs, and my wife doesn't like that too much. But that's something that we really have to examine. So we're behind technologically speaking compared to K through 8. Just with respect to prices, there's two different lunches you can get. One's $2.50, the other one's $3. They haven't raised the price in 2 years. Over the last 7 years, the price of lunch has been increased twice. So that was really the update. And one last thing, with respect to Sodexo, there's a state mandate that every 5 years, this contract has to be rebid. And with respect to our current situation now, we're still on that 5-year contract, but there are 2 more 1-year renewals left. And it's something that we have control of. It's not like we're locked in there for 5 years when it's mandated. So that's what transpired with food service. With respect to the vending machines, what we did is there were RFPs put out in February. And essentially what we really wanted to do was look at the quality of the food and drinks that were in the vending machines, the prices of the goods, and ultimately the revenues that were generated. And this is something that essentially still has to be looked at. We have to look at what's come back, do further examination, and at some point in time we may decide to bring a proposal for your consideration with respect to the vending machines. And that was it.
Just one further positive on the point of service that I think is an important consideration is currently if a student receives free and reduced lunch, they have a ticket that designates that designation, for lack of a better term. And I do know that there are, it forces the student to have to present that ticket to purchase the lunch, and there's an embarrassing component to that. There's something that kids sometimes opt out of lunch as a result of that. The point of service takes that away. Every kid has a card, so no one knows whether that's a free and reduced lunch or if that's a regularly priced lunch. And I think that it's an important consideration for our students. And follow. Mr. Moore.
Yes. Okay, so before we move into the public participation section of the agenda, in addition to the two addendum that are available on the back table, I have two others here, and I'm going to read them. I'll do the short one first. And this is under the personnel section of the agenda. Whereas, as a result of an investigation into an accident on April 30th, 2012 involving employee MH, the administration has recommended the termination of employment of MH. It is hereby resolved that the board approves and adopts the termination as recommended by the superintendent of employee MH. MH shall receive all salary and benefits consistent with her contract up and until May 13th, 2012. And the other one, as Mr. Sampson had mentioned during the superintendent's report, is related to the Energy Savings Improvement Program. This is something that the district is committed to. We think it's still a very viable option. We've reached a point here where we're going to proceed in the direction that is in the best interest of the district, and therefore we have this resolution for your consideration tonight. Whereas the Freehold Regional High School District Board of Education issued a request for proposals for an energy savings plan development and implementation project. Whereas the board initially awarded a contract for the project to Tozer Energy Systems, and whereas it was subsequently determined that Tozer's proposal contained a material defect, rendering it unresponsive to the requirements of the RFP, and rendering the subsequent contract award to Tozer null and void. And whereas it was determined that the proposals of a majority of the companies which submitted proposals for the project were also similarly materially defective. And whereas subsequent to the issuance of the RFP for the project, the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services also proposed substantial revisions to the model RFP for energy savings improvement programs. And whereas 18A, 22 of NJSA statutes provide that a Board of Education may reject all proposals received during the competitive contracting process in certain enumerated circumstances, including if the Board of Education determines that the specifications should be substantially revised. Be it resolved by Board as follows. Section 1, that the contract for the project awarded to Tozer is hereby rescinded. Section 2, that all of the proposals received for the project are hereby rejected because the project RFP and specifications must be substantially revised. Section 3, the RFP and specifications for the project shall be reviewed and revised immediately so that a revised RFP can be issued as soon as possible. And Section 4, the board hereby authorizes the school business administrator board secretary to reissue a revised RFP immediately upon completion of the substantial revisions of the project RFP and specifications. And that is the conclusion of the resolution. So I will begin to prepare that just as a point of information. The Department of Community Affairs and the Board of Public Utilities, who've been a source of great information throughout this process since we first developed the RFP for the Energy Savings Program, are considering, as the resolution states, substantial revisions to the process that we used and other districts did as well, although we're fairly early on in the Iep program. And I think the revisions are good. I think it takes a lot of the subjectivity out of it and makes it a little bit more certain and less technical from an engineering standpoint. However, the DCA and BPU have not formally adopted that recommended RFP, but again, the original RFP we issued was only a recommended document. So I'll be working closely with them to comply with, at the very least, the spirit of the changes, and I'll keep you posted as we move through this process once again. So those are the two, in addition to the two in the back, two additional addendums to tonight's agenda. Mr. Moses.
Hang on. Can I for a second, Mr. Domingo, just on the general feelings of how this process has unfolded? we're doing this in the spirit of making sure that we're above board with our RFP process. And to give Sean some credit here, this was a mammoth process that the spirit of which the RFP that he developed, the new guidelines that the state has put out actually mirror what Mr. Boyce did in this, as this was uncharted waters. It's disgusting to me that a company would utilize the tactics that an individual company in this issue, and John, stop me if I go too far in this process, that it's frustrating, but we will reissue the RFP to comply with the technical specifications that are still unfolding, and we'll start the process over again.
Well, I think that said it all. Okay, next we come to public participation. And we have just 4 names. Good God. We have Gina Francia.
Hi, my name is Gina Francia. I live at 34 Lane, Malvern, New Jersey. I have a son in Malvern High School, and I have a boy that graduated from Malvern High School. They both enjoy the school, they love it very much, and I've always sent them there with confidence. My confidence is a little bit shattered right now, okay? The incident last May 2nd was very disturbing to me. It was even more so disturbing because I found out what was going on. I called the school and I asked, and I was told that nothing was going on, and that a staff member had been sick. And I was not told anything that went on. I called at 12 o'clock, and by 1 o'clock, the children were dismissed into chaos. The children were not asked if they were okay. Nobody asked any of the kids, do you feel sick? They just released them. They put them in the auditorium. They didn't allow them to use the bathrooms. They didn't want them in hallways. They didn't give them lunch. They didn't ask them if they were okay. And they sent them out into the streets. It's very disturbing to me as a parent to call the school and be told that everything was okay when it was not. That's the first thing. And the second thing, I would like a copy of the material safety data sheet for the chemical that was used that caused the noxious odor.
Sure. Can you email me your name so I have an address? I'll PDF a copy of it for you. It was
It should have been a matter of public record. It should have been posted, and we should have been notified before it was used without children in the school.
Well, the paint is actually approved for use in school. The timing of it was not acceptable, as I said in my statement earlier.
Right, I understand the statement, and I appreciate your apology, but it's what's done is done. And our children were there, and the situation was not handled properly. I know that you're saying that they came into the school and they said the air quality was good, but it wasn't. If you were moving the children to different areas of the school, obviously there was a problem. And there was, there's reports that children went to the hospital. Why weren't they just moved outside as quickly as possible? Suppose that had been flammable. Suppose it was combustible. Nobody knew that. Again, my main concern was that I called the school and I was told that everything was fine at 12 o'clock. And by 1 o'clock, my son was wandering, and I went and found him in my car because he wasn't going to wait for the bus.
Well, the emergency alert system was activated for all parents to know that the buses were beginning to dismiss it.
I called and I spoke to someone who told me that everything was fine, that staff member was sick.
I don't know who you spoke to, ma'am.
Somebody in the office. And they said they were acting on what they were told to say. So there's no answer to that, and that is not the policy. Is it the policy to tell the parent if the parent calls? Is it the policy to tell them what's going on in that type of situation?
Well, there's no policy on the specific response when an individual picks up the phone who's not necessarily authorized to give a response to
Well,
begin
anybody that
with.
picks up the phone is acting under administration.
Correct, but I can't control for how an individual chooses to interpret or respond. What we did was follow all of our protocols to move kids down. There's a process. It's not. There was never any thought that anyone was in harm's way from something that was combustible or flammable. There were health officials there.
People were getting sick.
Correct.
People were getting sick from the smell. So nobody knew what was going on at the time. It turns out, a day later, hindsight is 20/20. But, you know, at the time, they didn't know if it was going to be bad. I heard there was a teacher that was pregnant that had to be treated. You know, nobody knew what was going on at the time. Why don't the children just move outside to fresh air, to fresh clean air? Because it was raining or drizzling? I'd rather a wet child than a sick child.
Right, they were moved out of the area from which the odor was. There were no odors in any of the areas that they were moved to, and the air
I had
quality
child
was
in school
fine.
there was, they were in the odor, they were not allowed to use the bathroom, they were not fed, and they were not asked if they were okay before they were released to find their own way home.
I would disagree that they were released to find their own way home. We followed the exit procedures, and any student who wasn't fed, which were 2 of the 4 lunches, were home at the absolute latest on the buses by 2 o'clock. So I would rather risk a child not eating from 6:30 in the morning till 2 o'clock rather than eat some food that was exposed to
The
fumes.
children just left. No, I absolutely agree that they shouldn't have been fed, but I think that they should have been released, and you should have done your call and got them out of that school a lot earlier. You know, you knew, what time did you know that you weren't going to be able to feed them?
At 11:35.
So then why weren't they released at 11:35?
Because we had to call the buses. The decision to close school, we were told school could be occupied at 11:35 and that we did not need to early dismiss. We still did that as a secondary precaution. That was all done by 11:55. By 12 o'clock, I believe the robocalls went out and we began marshaling.
12:54, the robocall went in.
Okay,
12 o'clock, I called the school and was told everything was fine.
I'll check the time on the robocall, but the decision to activate the robocall was made prior to 12 o'clock because we started to dismiss.
And that's very disturbing, because when I called and spoke to them, they already had the decision to make the robocall that the school was going to be closed.
The
They told me
individual,
everything is fine.
right, the individual you spoke to in that moment may not even have been aware of that though, ma'am. I mean, they don't know when. Correct.
They're my contact to my child.
They are, but they're not necessarily,
Go to school.
right, but they're not, no, I would never advise that, but they're not necessarily aware in that moment of the decision that's unfolding and what's happening at that point in time. You can't expect, there's a school, there's 2,400 people in that school. You can't expect every single person to be aligned with all the decisions that go into something like that. To early dismiss in that manner is not something that can be done instantaneously, to do it in a proper fashion.
But I would expect that if I call and I ask and my child is in their care, they should be able to give me an answer if there is an emergency situation in the school.
I agree with you.
Okay, thank you. And you will email me the...
Send me an email with your email address, I'd be glad to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next we have John. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Candiano. This is my partner, Dan Goldheim. We are owners of Goldie's Ice Cream, which is an ice cream vending company that resides here in Manalapan. At least for the past 11 years, Dan and I have been working in the ice cream business, and we've been the ice cream vending company of Manalapan on Memorial Day soccer tournament. We've been dealing with the Booster Club, specifically the last few years, Lori and Bruno. And we were given the rights by them over the past few years to vend ice cream there for the actual weekend of the tournament as well as the high school graduation.
That's at Manalapan High School.
At Manalapan High School, sorry. In return, we were given a generous donation of $500 for allowing our truck to vend on their property. This past year, when we went to contact the Booster Club to make sure everything was in line, we were told that we would have to go deal with the Board of Education. So we had contacted them. We filled out an application and we received a phone call from Mr. Boyce, who informed us that our fee now went from $500 to $5,600. As a business owner, I try to grow my business year in and year out, and that's just put me in the complete opposite direction. I'm not asking for anything over the top. I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody or the schools or the children, but I'm also trying to make a living to stay afloat. I do have a wife that I need to take care of, and I've just recently had a child as well, who I'm now in charge of providing for. Not that having a child has anything to do with that, but just open my eyes to a lot more things. One being that, to find something out like that, with just a rate of $500 a year over the past, since I've been doing it for 11 years. And I know it's been going on way before that, and I've only been driving for 11 years, that's why I can speak for it. But to go up to a total of $5,600, just basically puts me out of business. I reside in Manalapan, my business resides in Manalapan, I'm an Manalapan taxpayer. I want nothing more than a fair chance to make money and be successful. Just say the same thing that my father said. We just didn't understand why that price was increased like that. It's physically not possible for us to even make any kind of money out of it, except for loss.
Where does that number come from?
The board has a policy regarding commercial use of our campuses. The authority to grant permission for commercial enterprises to do business on our grounds rests with the board. So any prior arrangements that you had were not properly authorized, and the responsibility for obtaining insurance, which I understand that you've operated on the site for a number of years without providing any type of liability insurance.
You do have liability.
Okay, but it was not, but then let me finish, I'll let you finish. So, that was not provided to the board. The board had no assurance of the protection. The taxpayers were vulnerable because of a commercial organization doing business on our property for years. As I discussed with Dan earlier today, the policy calls for the fees, and I'm not in a position to circumvent or supersede board policy on that matter. As we discussed, I would bring it to the board for their consideration to revise the policy, but that's something that doesn't happen in one meeting. But I will bring it to them for their consideration. But just to be clear, there is a policy that governs this, and it needs to be consistently applied throughout the district. And parent organizations do not have the authority to grant you access and permission to use the district's facilities.
Well, then, I guess my next question is, this has been going on for 20 years, where was the Board of Education for the past 20 years?
It's a good question, but we've become aware of it now, and we'll handle it appropriately as I become aware of it.
Yes, but I'm just saying, as you guys were, I'm not saying you in particular, but this has been going on for 20 years, 11 years while I've been in the business, and it's just a little disturbing that my fee of $500 that I was paying.
Actually, that wasn't a fee.
That was a donation, I'm sorry.
Okay. Again, it had nothing to do with the school district.
You just want to bring attention, I don't understand too that this tournament is 2 days, and they asked us for $4,300 for 2 days, and in addition, we're at the high school graduation for just a couple of hours, where that's another $1,300. For an example, last year we grossed $220 at the graduation. I think $1,300 is just taking us and putting us out of business. It's just feel like we're being like kind of extorted in a way. We're a local business just trying to succeed like anybody else that owns a business. And $4,000 and $1,300 for 3 total days to me just seems outrageous.
Sir, I'm Jack Megno, one of the school district's attorneys. We recognize you're a resident. We recognize that you try to make a living. Congratulations on the birth of your child. I take extreme objection to your reference to extortion. Any conversation that you've had with the administration, I'm sure, has made clear reference to district policies. I'm sure that the schedule that this board or a predecessor board has established, was made available to you. Our facilities do not operate for commercial ventures. Our facilities operate for the education of our students. If commercial ventures are permitted access, it's for the courtesy of our students and our staff and the public. And if a reasonable fee is charged, again determined by this Board of Education, is by policy. So there's nothing here that's extortive. There's nothing here that's out of the ordinary other than the history, I think, that you've set out for us, which sounds very clear to be inconsistent with district policy.
I mean, also, I just want to clear that up. I never said I was being extorted. I said I feel like I'm being extorted.
Okay.
I'm sure you would be too. If you were paying rent at $500 a year for 11 years, and all of a sudden it went up to $5,600, what are you supposed to do?
Right, and again, we appreciate you clarifying
I
that.
just want to finish that. I understand exactly what you're saying, but I feel like maybe there was a miscommunication and you guys weren't aware, and because of that, I'm paying the prices.
Okay, and that's...
I just don't feel that's right.
Well, and you're a member of the public, you have a right to come up and speak, and you've been heard. That's been honored. Again, any contribution you might have made in the past, it sounds like it wasn't with the Board of Education, and your presence doesn't sound like it was consistent with board policy. So we apologize that there was an oversight, you weren't charged properly in the past. We appreciate you bringing it to our attention, as the business administrator has very clearly noted, and all board members have heard it. The board has an opportunity to reconsider that fee schedule, and I'm sure that whatever committee would properly review that will.
And my only other thing is this sort of takes place the other night.
Okay.
We're not pressed for time, I'm sure. There's a lot of preparation that goes into that as well for us. So, I mean, is it possible to situation rectify before that, or we just, is that okay?
I would say no. I think it's highly unlikely that any committee will review this prior to the end of May. It's May 7th now.
I mean, this is the usual time where we contact the same people. We've been doing it for 11 years, and this was like kind of a shock to us when 500, 5,600. I mean, again, that's 3 days worth of vending. You feel you know, that much money, never mind profit. 3 days, $5,600, $2 extra. It's not even possible. I don't understand. I'm just curious on how how did that amount of money have been put together and asked for? Under what?
I certainly will send you the board policy that we're discussing, and you can take a look at that yourself.
Does it describe?
It is, it does.
It tells you why 5,600?
It has all the whole fee schedule, it's several pages of policy and regulation. I'll be happy to send that to you. You can take a look at it and give me a call, follow up if you have any further
I just don't
questions.
think there's an ice cream man out there that can make $5,600 in 2 days, and I got 8 hours a day.
Fair enough.
That's it, I guess, it's all press for the year.
We do this as soon as possible.
I
I mean, this is a big weekend for us.
It's one of the
We're
big
used to doing it for over 11 years. One of our biggest weekends of the year, we look forward to it. And we're in Alpendale, and we want to move forward with it.
When is the
Well,
event?
May
May 28th, right? May 28th?
May 26th.
That's that Friday.
It takes at least 2 meetings to go over policy. And we don't have another meeting in May. And I mean, it's not that we're but we have other meetings really. So, I don't know, I'm not the chairperson of the policy committee.
I totally
There's a
understand.
there's a whole process that we have to go through that I don't think it's likely that.
I'm just being maybe that this is the first time this has ever come up, and we were hit basically blindsided by it, with nothing we could do to speed that up and to make it at least somewhat fair, trying to get us into, for this year.
If I could make a suggestion to the board, it's actually housing regulation that's with the appropriate policy. If I could take a look at that, have a conversation with Mr. Sampson, and communicate with the board offline, and reach back out to these gentlemen, and try and find some common ground if you're willing to do that. We'll take a look at it, and if the board is agreeable to that, I can put something together and send something out to you shortly.
You'll apprise us of the current policy specifics.
Sure, that's all. Mr. Sampson? We'll be in touch shortly, John.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Boyce, may I?
I want to, I've only been on the board for a couple of years, and I want to let you guys know that I apologize for the fact that people made a deal with you that really were not in a position to make a deal with you.
May I speak?
So, no, I'm speaking, and I'll give you a chance, but I want to finish what I'm saying. So I really feel bad, because I understand, the economy and everything, and I know you guys are just trying to make a living. I just feel that, people there made decisions and made a deal with you, and you felt that that was a deal for the district, that they spoke for the Freehold Regional High School District, and they did. But of course, that still leaves you in the lurch.
And where was the Board of Education who was in charge of making that decision?
Well, what I mean, the decision was made without the board's knowledge. I didn't know about that.
Actually, they also sell, they're not only selling ice cream, they sell there, that's another vendor. I go to the graduation, there's all kinds of vendors there selling things at Manalapan High School that have been going on
since when my son graduated with Mrs. Gray.
Okay, what we're doing, all I can say is that I worked at the borough for 35 years, I never saw that at any graduation. So I don't know what's going on at the other schools. Obviously, we have to have a rule that applies to all the schools equally. You know, that's one of the things about having 6 high schools. I mean, they all should be treated the same.
It's just upsetting to us as business owners that we're being told now that the Board of Education is rude because they were unaware of what's going on. I mean, I guess, I don't know how that becomes my problem. If someone else wasn't aware, if that's your job on a daily basis, I know that would be my fault. It wasn't,
I just have to, before the argument, it's not our, I understand the position you're in, you've been put in a bad spot. But at the end of the day, I'm worried about educating 12,000 kids, not your business making a profit on one of the school facility properties. So I'm also looking at that tack, how your business thrives, and I wish you the best. But when something comes to our attention of that nature, that's a complete violation of board policy, we're compelled to act, because guess what? Once it is in the board's lap, then the board's responsible. So that's, you know, I think Mr. Boyce was clear that he's willing to try and work offline, he's willing to try and do something, but I'll say it publicly, the business profits on one of my school properties is not what drives us as a board or as an administration here, the education of our students are. So, I mean, we have to balance those needs, and we're willing, we understand, we're willing to work with you, we're willing to try, we understand you've done this in good faith, that you're well known in the community, but you have to give us an opportunity, because just like you're saying, this just fell in our lap, it fell in this lap as well. So I think Mr. Boyce is willing to talk to you offline. I think we're willing to try and do something here, but it can't happen that quickly. I understand you're up on a deadline, but we can certainly, we're going to listen, and we're not trying to pin you down for something you were unaware of, but just.
And I'm not trying to take any money out of anybody's.
No, I get it.
I'm not trying to take out on anything. That's
Understood. Understood. But that it's different issues.
Exactly what you wanted, or the money that not you wanted. I'm sorry that was being asked for. I would certainly do it. But it's just not practical. I just can't do it. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Moses, John said you gave a $500 donation. Can you tell us where that donation money went to? Thank you very much. I didn't know.
Mr. Moses, may I speak on behalf of the Booster Club? Lori and Bruno and Alvin, I am the president. This year is my first year as the president on the Alvin High School Braves Booster Club. So I just want to make something clear. And I've been in contact with Dan because I have to get into the middle of it. Not because the Booster Club approved them to be on the grounds. And I've known Karen Heinowitz for many years. She never approved them to be there. You know, they were on the grounds. Who approved it over the years? Like we said, this has been going back like 20 years. So I don't know what administration ever allowed it, when it was allowed, or how it was allowed, but I just want to make something perfectly clear. The Manalapan High School Braves Booster Club never approved them to be on the grounds. They happened to be on the grounds, and they were generous enough to give back a donation to the Booster Club. So I just want to make that clear. Mr. Boyce knows right away if I have any confusion, I contact him. I would never, ever approve anyone to be on the facility. This has been going on 20 years.
And just a point of information, and I've had conversations with Mrs. Bruno over the years on a variety of issues. She's always been very cooperative. She's one of our real doer parents that does a lot for our kids. And we had this conversation as well. And I explained to her where I was coming from. She certainly understood. So I think moving forward, we're in a good way. We got a little transition period here. I think, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of fair notice, proceeding in good faith, as Mr. Sampson discussed, we want to give these gentlemen a fair shake. So I will work with Mr. Sampson and bring something to the board offline. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce.
Thank you. Next we have, oh my goodness, back from rehab, Leon Zimmerman.
I originally, Leon Ciroli from Alvin, I originally wanted to ask about this incident with the toxic fumes in Alvin. And I take Mr. Sampson's explanation for what happened and how it was dealt with, but I also listened to the mother whose son was in the middle of all this. And I only know what I read in the paper and online, and it was disturbing to hear whether it was factual or not, about students feeling that they were in a unventilated room, they weren't allowed to open the windows, and toxic fumes were coming in through the vents. And so I don't know what the story is, and I was hoping that I would get some kind of an explanation. And, I understand that the time constraints of getting buses there to remove the students at a reasonable time, and it's a situation that, you know, are there policies in effect at the school to handle these kinds of situations? Just like you have fire drills, there are policies for dealing with that. Are there policies for this? Was the acting principal involved in any of this? I don't remember in reading any of the reports her name involved as making any decision.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Mrs. Sharp was at a principal's meeting. All the principals were here at Pine Street, and we received a phone call from the assistant principal there at approximately 11:35. So within a span of 11:35 to 11:55, Ms. Sharp made it over to the building, ascertained what was going on, and we made the call to dismiss her. So that was ultimately my call with Mrs. Sharp. So yeah, she was involved in the decision making. Certainly, in terms of the practices, we followed all of our procedures. You know, we activated the emergency alert system. We put the protocols in place through transportation to pull the bus drivers in on a staggered basis. We vacated, we removed students from the affected area of the school. You have to remember, you're saying toxic fumes, but we were being told by the county health officials on site that the air was fine for occupancy, so we kept them away. There was definitely a strong smell. It definitely affected people, so we kept them out of that wing, without a doubt. But there was never, at any time there, did any health official even say, this is a dangerous situation where you have to evacuate the building. That wasn't, it didn't happen. And we relied on their expertise, and we had Mrs. Sharp and her team, we had the Director of Buildings and Grounds, we had our Safety Compliance Officer on site, so we had a number of folks addressing the situation, throughout. So, it's an unfortunate event. I understand the tenseness from a parental perspective, that if your child's in the building, there's concern, absolutely. But if we ever, at any point in time, thought that there was a risk, an imminent risk, we would have evacuated, a stage 2 evacuation of the whole building. And that's where you go off-site. And that need was not there. And it was clearly echoed to us from the officials that were on site. So we followed our protocols. Like I said, the recommendation to me was that we did not need to dismiss early, that we could have kept students in that wing of the building. I chose not to do that. And that was, to Aaron's side of the question. The next morning, we brought county health officials back to retest the area again. They didn't have to come back. We chose to do that again, just to make sure that there wasn't something lingering in the vents, there wasn't something that we missed the day before, to get that clean bill of health twice. There's no substitute for a poor decision. To paint during a school day is a poor decision, period. Anybody, I've painted my house a million times. I know not to paint while people are in there. It's just common sense. So that speaks to some of the other actions that are being, that will be addressed in terms of the operating procedures and how we're going to move forward.
I've been in a similar situation. Back in the 80s, I was working at Channel 9, and they had a program called Bowling for Dollars.
Oh, yeah.
They had a bowling alley in the studio below the control room that we were in. And over the weekend, they decided to lacquer the alleys. Well, we took the unprecedented step of shutting the station down the following day because those fumes were coming up. And so I know how it feels to be in that situation.
You had the mercy of the buses, too.
What?
You're
No, I
at the
understand.
mercy- Working in here from New York, and even in the school I teach in, if there's an emergency, not an emergency, but if a snowstorm comes up, you have to wait for those buses to come. You might as well just miss late because they never get there on time.
Well, at least as the mother said, get them outside the street to fresh air. I mean, it's all, again, it's almost similar when you're waiting for the, after 9/11, when the federal EPA commissioner said that the air is okay to breathe, which was a total BS.
And Mr. Strolnick, if the students were in imminent danger, we would have evacuated them, but it would have been to move 2,200 students out when we did not have to, and we were told that they were fine in the wing of the building that they were. That's a management, right, that's a difficult process from a management perspective, and not a decision that we would make, obviously, unless we had to. But we did, that's why the students were kept in spaces in other ends of the building. We didn't want them exposed to anything in that wing that was shut down. In schools you have things that for instance, if a erstwhile student puts a smoke bomb in a school or something of that nature, there's a process to figure out, somebody smells it, you don't put two and two together, you report, oh, there's an odor here. You don't necessarily think, there's a process to investigating that takes time. It's not, it can't happen that quickly sometimes when something is unfolding. So, all things considered, this issue in particular, in Alvin, was dealt with very, very quickly and very, very efficiently in terms of the scope of how you deal with something like this.
Take your word for it. I also wanted to say, in all the years that I've been coming to these board meetings, this was one of the most riveting presentations of these students that I've seen since we've been coming here. This was, I give you credit, Dr. Hazel. This was, I really appreciate the explanation for this artwork, because sitting here and looking at the way it was presented and then hearing the explanation, I mean, it's breathtaking to see what was done and how it was done. And I made the comment earlier, the statement by the young lady who finished the presentation makes you wonder how many people like her who are out there who don't have the opportunities that she has, and who are stuck in the mindset that are keeping them down. This is a credit to the whole administration for this.
You did. You did. And as a famous alumni of my old high school, Freehold Borough, would say, last but not least. Last but not least. Spotlight on GLORIA. Okay, here we go. Yes.
Just to be clear, the scope of the agenda that Mr. Moses is about to present, the original agenda, the two items in the back, I3 and H1, and then also H10 and J1, which I just noted, were the two that I read to the board earlier. So that's the scope.
I'd like to ask if anyone on the board has an objection to taking the entire agenda in one shot. We have a so moved. We have a second for the so moved. We have 2 seconds for the so moved. Discussion. Seeing none. Okay, Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Asatola?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Canario?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Satara?
Yes.
Mrs. Mazza?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes. Okay, that takes care of that. Old business? New business? We have a motion, meeting.
So moved.
Unanimous. Thank you for coming.